Hey folks, welcome back to Biz Talks. Hey, we're having a great conversation with Greg Schaefer with VCSO Services LLC, all about system securities and how to, protect your systems, from getting, some incidents, attacks, from malware and cybersecurity and all those great things. So, Greg, I want to thank you for, staying on with us for another segment because this conversation is great. We're helping a lot of people, and obviously we're getting your brand out because we want people to, get to know Greg a little bit more and VCSO Services. So thank you for staying with us.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, man. Like I was saying, we were having a great conversation, and we just couldn't leave it at that. There's still a lot more to talk about, and we want to make sure that we cover a little bit more. So let's discuss how VCSO Services, how do you guys tailor your offerings for small to medium-sized businesses? Can you drive a little bit deeper into how you specifically, create some specific solutions to offset those challenges for these businesses? Tell us a little bit more about that.
It's important to understand as a starting point that small businesses have a lot of the same risks, a lot of the same threats, a lot of the same information security needs as large businesses, but they don't have the resources to address them. They don't have, from the cybersecurity perspective, they don't have the IT infrastructure, so they outsource that, and then that becomes a vendor management issue, which then becomes a risk management issue in information security. And then that kind of leads to the idea that small and mid-sized businesses really don't have information security risk management knowledge and experience like the big companies do. And we've mentioned that before.
Mm-hmm.
But this is all been now about understanding the culture of a small and mid-sized business and their risk tolerance, their risk profile. A small business in particular, sometimes startups, they're gonna have a little bit different of a risk profile of risk tolerance than, say, a more established business. It's just because they're in the startup mode. They're trying to get something launched. And so that doesn't mean cutting corners. It means really understanding the business needs, the risk environment of the business. And I know that that sounds a little bit nebulous, but it's almost more of an art than it is a science. Some just have a different tolerance. And so if you bring in an IT security consultant who's really focused on all the cybersecurity stuff, they're not going to be able to help because there's sometimes, as I like to explain sometimes to clients, particularly like that, is as an effective virtual CISO for small and mid-sized businesses, sometimes I need to understand what to ignore. And it's not really ignoring, but it's more about how you prioritize. So this particular item here, yeah, it's a risk and we should be dealing with it, but we've got 3 or 4 other things here that we definitely need to deal with more, not only from an information security perspective, but from an overall business risk perspective.
Absolutely. So, one of the things that, I'm just really curious about, and I'm going to ask you because you're the expert. You have a mid-sized business where they say, oh no, we are covered. We've got an in-house IT person, and I think we're covered in terms of cybersecurity. What's your response to something like that?
That's a difficult one because I think that they don't understand that there's a difference between IT security and information security. They're two different disciplines that kind of merge with each other. So information security is a broader term that encompasses cybersecurity, which is the technology side. So sometimes people will think, well, we have a firewall in place, or we've got good antivirus, we don't need anything else, we're fine.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it gets back to, I'll use the term frequently when I talk about this, it gets down to risk management. And so you have to, in order to get to them, if you will, to make them understand. And I ask this question with my guests on the podcast all the time because it's difficult. How
Mm-hmm.
do you get them to understand from a risk management standpoint that this security stuff is good for your business? It's a very complicated skill set. You have to be very good at risk management, and you have to be very good at communication as well.
I ask you this because it's a conversation that I had not long ago, and so my thought is I was listening to you just a minute ago. I'm like, I need to ask him this because how would you answer that question? Because there is a very big difference between just IT services and then cybersecurity. So it's two totally different ball games. Let's talk about you mentioned previously the importance of staying ahead of the curve in cybersecurity. Let's talk a little bit more about the cutting edge technologies that or practices that VCSO Services is currently implementing and to enhance, clients' security frameworks?
Now, the buzzword is AI, artificial intelligence, and it seems like that every company now has got some sort of AI infused, and whether or not that's a marketing, more marketing than technology, that's a debate for another day. But there has been improvements on tools that can help with the workflow. And I'm generally, as a rule, against tools that solve a human process issue. In other words, if a human needs to do it, we talked about risk management before, there's not really a tool that can make those risk management decisions, but there are tools that can help with it. So one real example of I would call it cutting edge because it's something that hasn't been around for too long, is a platform that we use to track compliance with different frameworks. Like, for example, we're working with a credit union that they're aligned to the NIST cybersecurity framework, but they now also are needing to be compliant with the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, or PCI DSS, because we like acronyms in information security. Well, instead of starting from scratch and trying to figure out, well, all those 300 items with regards to PCI, how do we meet compliance with that? This tool is smart enough, that's that AI aspect again, to be able to match between what we already did as far as identifying controls and evidence for the NIST cybersecurity framework and apply that to PCI. And what that ends up doing is it obviously increases efficiency on everybody's part, but it also eliminates errors from and discontinuity where you might say you do something in one framework but not in the other framework. And then finally, it helps with reporting because when all is said and done, you want to be able to report to your C-suite and your board of directors on the security program. And instead of having these multiple spreadsheets with multiple things and multiple frameworks and all over the place, it's very confusing. If you can get something that presents a nice, clean dashboard to give you an overall view of the security program, it is always better than anything else.
Absolutely. And it's all about having the right service, right? Hiring the right company to provide you with all of those tools that you can present to those folks. You know, cybersecurity is not necessarily just about technology, it's also about people and processes. How do you guys work with your clients, to foster a culture where security awareness and to ensure all of the employees are engaged in maintaining this strong security?
No, and this is where this is kind of a different approach for some people than others, but I like to use the term information security as the overall arching umbrella, and then you have cyber and you have GRC and you have training and awareness and underneath. So in this case, cyber is a subdomain within there. Well, awareness training is really one of the most important aspects of information security that we need to employ because the folks that are running the business, they can be the most exploitable because they're focused on making sure that the business is running as opposed to they're not all security experts, but everybody has to be security aware. So one of the things we do, and a lot of firms do this, but because we're not natively trainers, we're not natively educators, so we partner with a firm that does that and provides a lot of different modules, different ways to train folks because people learn differently. There are some folks like me that I like a PowerPoint, I like facts there, just give it to me, I'll write it down, and let me take the test. And there are some folks that do better if it's like a storyboard or almost like a short sitcom or something like that. So if you can tailor to how the folks are learning, you're going to get that awareness penetration, if you will. And then the same, in addition with awareness, there's also that phishing awareness. So phishing being the emails that come to try to get you to click on something and enter your credentials, which you don't want to do that because then the bad folks, they have your credentials, your username and password. Well, we want to make sure that people are aware of that. And one of the best ways to do that is to run periodic exercises where we send out those test emails. And if they click on it, they get a little bit of a tap on the shoulder. Hey, you missed this. That's okay. If you want a little bit more of awareness training, then here it is. Or sometimes you might want to have it assigned as awareness training. It's all about muscle memory. But the important thing to realize there is that you never want to be punitive with that. There are some organizations, I remember one in particular, that they would detract from the annual bonus of their staff every time that one of these phishing exercise emails were clicked on. And what ends up happening there is that you create a culture of it's more of a depressed morale, if you will. And then you start losing trust between the staff and information security. And at that point in time, it becomes a very difficult environment because one of the things that we rely upon, CISOs and virtual CISOs, is the trust and the relationship of everybody within the organization.
So obviously, the aside from AI and all of the services that you guys provide, the human element is still a very big thing, right? It's a crucial part of it, and we have to ensure that everyone is working together in a one team type of atmosphere, culture type of situation. Greg, it's been a great conversation, just getting to talk a little bit more about these topics. I think every time that we have these conversations, we just uncover a little bit more, and our audience is continuing to learn, which is a great thing, and that's what we're here for. So I want to thank you for being on the show. We definitely do appreciate it, and I know this is not going to be the last time, but we'll see you on upcoming shows.
All right. I enjoyed being here. Thanks for having me.
All right, man, we appreciate you. All right, folks, that is that for that segment. We're going to go to a commercial break. We'll be right back.